Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today. We are diving deep, literally, to explore one of the most fascinating, almost alien-like groups of aquatic creatures on Earth, Phylum Coelenterata, or, as they're also known, the cnidarians. We're going to break down the incredible biology of these animals layer by layer, and I promise you, by the time we're done here, you will never look at the ocean the same way again.
So let me ask you this. Think about a deadly, free-swimming jellyfish pulsing through the dark ocean, and then picture a stunning, rock-solid coral reef just bursting with color. What could those two radically different things possibly have in common? On the surface, absolutely nothing. But biologically, they are practically siblings. They belong to the exact same family. And today, we're going to uncover exactly how that works. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today's biological tour. We'll cover the dual identity, the biological blueprint, two avatars, alternation of generation, and finally, meet the family. Section 1. The dual identity. What's in a name? You know, biologists absolutely love their Greek roots, right? And this specific phylum actually goes by two distinct names that serve as huge clues to how they function. The first one is Coelenterata. It comes from two words, koilos, meaning hollow, and enteron, meaning gut. So you're quite literally calling them the hollow gut animals. That massive, central, hollow space is the absolute defining feature of their internal structure. But you'll also hear them called cnidia. Actually, this one is probably more common today. It refers directly to their biological weaponry. The name comes from cnidiblasts, or cnidiocytes, which are these highly specialized stinging cells loaded right on their tentacles and bodies. If you've ever been stung by a jellyfish, well, you've personally experienced a cnidiocyte in action.
Before we look under the hood, let's establish where they live and how they're shaped. These are entirely aquatic animals. The vast majority are marine, meaning they hang out in salt water, though there are a few rebels, like the hydra, that prefer freshwater. They're also radially symmetrical. This means if you slice them straight down the center from any direction, you get two identical halves, kind of like slicing a pizza. They just don't have a left or right side like we do. Moving on to Section 2, the biological blueprint, anatomy and superpowers. So how are these guys actually built? Well, they have what's called a diploblastic tissue organization. This just means their bodies develop from two embryonic layers, an outer ectoderm and an inner endoderm. But here's the cool part. Sandwiched right in between those two cellular layers is the mesoglia. It's this undifferentiated, non-cellular, gelatinous layer. This squishy, jelly-like filling is exactly what gives jellyfish their name and that distinct, wobbly look. All right, back to those stinging cells, because this is literally their ultimate superpower. These cnidoblasts contain tiny stinging capsules called nematocysts. Think of them as the Swiss Army knife of the animal kingdom. They aren't just for ruining your beach vacation. These multi-purpose tools help them firmly anchor to surfaces, defend against threats, and most importantly, they act as microscopic harpoons to capture and paralyze their prey. Once they've snagged their lunch, it has to go somewhere, right? Enter the central gastrovascular cavity, also known as a coelenteron. But they have an incomplete digestive tract. What does that mean? Well, they only have a single opening, a mouth located on a structure called the hypostome. One door in, same door out. Inside that cavity, digestion happens both extracellularly, breaking down food in the open space, and intracellularly, right inside the cells themselves. Now, while jellyfish are all squish and wobble, some cnidarians go in a completely different direction. Corals, for example, have evolved to extract calcium carbonate straight from the ocean water to build these rock-hard protective skeletons. It sounds like a tiny biological detail, but when billions of these little polyps stack their skeletons over thousands of years, you get massive structures. To put that into perspective, they literally built the Great Barrier Reef, entire islands constructed by tiny, simple animals. It's wild. Which brings us to Section 3. Two avatars. Polyp versus Medusa. Basically, the whole cnidarian family tree is split into two foundational body plans. First, you have the polyp. This form is sessile, meaning stationary. It just stays put. It's cylindrical, like a tube with tentacles pointing up. Think hydra or the sea anemone, Adamangia. The second form is the medusa. This is your free-swimming, umbrella-shaped form. Imagine taking a polyp, flipping it upside down so the tentacles trail underneath, and letting it swim away. That's a medusa. with the classic jellyfish, or Aurelia, being the poster child. Section 4. Alternation of generation. The magic of metagenesis. So what happens when a creature just flat out refuses to pick one shape? Some of them actually exist in both forms during their life cycle, which is a phenomenon called metagenesis. And this brilliantly illustrates one of the coolest reproductive cycles out there. Step 1. The stationary polyps just pop out free-swimming medusas asexually, usually through budding. Then step 2, those swimming medusa reproduce sexually. They release gametes that fuse into a zygote, which eventually sinks to the ocean floor and grows into, a stationary polyp. The classic example is Obelia. It's essentially shape-shifting across generations. Finally, Section 5. Meet the family. The Cnidarian Rogues Gallery. Let's put some faces to the names with a few famous family members you'll definitely want to remember. First up, Physalia, commonly known as the Portuguese man-of-war. It totally looks like a jellyfish, but actually, scratch that, it's an entire colony of polyps and medusae working together, packing a notoriously painful sting. Next is Adamsia, the sea anemone. It's a gorgeous, stationary polyp that looks like an underwater flower. Then there's Pennatula, the sea pen, named because it looks exactly like an old-fashioned quill pen sticking right out of the sand. Rounding out the list, we have Gorgonia, beautifully named the sea fan because it grows in these intricate, flat, fan-like patterns to catch ocean currents. And lastly, Meandrina, the brain coral. Its calcium carbonate skeleton has these winding ridges and valleys. It literally looks like a human brain just sitting on the ocean floor. These guys really highlight how incredibly diverse this phylum is. So, as we wrap up our explainer today, I want to leave you with a quick thought experiment. We've talked about their hollow guts, their stinging superpowers, their reef building, and their shape-shifting. If you were a cnidarian, which path would you choose? Would you go for the settled, cylindrical life of a polyp, firmly anchored and just letting the ocean come to you? Or would you choose the free-roaming umbrella life of a medusa, drifting through the deep blue? Think about it. Biology isn't just a list of facts. It's a window into millions of different ways to live on this planet. Thanks so much for joining me today. Keep exploring, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.